A big thank you to Jero for sponsoring today's video on Patreon. Miss Bumbleflower versus Aslask, Maelstrom Wanderer and Anitha. Well, we've got ramp, a means of fixing our colours, so if we're lucky enough to get into another land we could go for a turn 3 Smothering Tithe, which will make things even easier. So let's keep this. Esper Sentinel on turn 1 for Denetha. I'm assuming Maelstrom Wanderer is going to do a decent amount of land ramping, so I'm wondering if Deep Gnome Terramancer would be good in play for that, but well, we've got 3 visits and Harrow. I suppose we can keep up Harrow at instant speed and just definitely go for a turn 2, 3 visits because it does guarantee the land, unlike the Gnome. And we see a Polluted Delta being cracked already, so that would work with the Deep Gnome Terramancer. Okay, drawing to an Archivist of Ogma, very similar to the Deep Gnome Terramancer in a way, so I think this has to be a Surveil land then. Go for the white one, try and put another land on top, the Lush Portico, and we do see a land on top, so we will keep that. Lightning Greaves, and our opponent has Tron in this 5 colour deck, so seeing the first of that in Urza's Power Plant, and obviously drawing to the forest that we threw on top previously, so yeah, we will go for the 3 visits. The flash creatures are something that we can double spell with at some point maybe. That does mean Esper Sentinel draws its first card. That can be a Hedge Maze to fix our colours. A Planar Genesis. Yeah, I suppose we could keep that on top as well. Just want to get as many double spells as possible with Miss Bumbleflower. So it's probably the Smothering Tithe next turn. Denetha coming into play for the first time, likely going to get the Lightning Greaves onto there. Noteworthy that there is a Hall of Heliod's Generosity, so this is a mixture of auras and equipment, we assume. Won't be able to put auras and equipment onto Denetha as long as it has Shroud though. So might struggle if he loses the Esper Sentinel, which might mean it's worth holding up Swords to Plowshares. So if we go Smothering Tithe, hold up Swords to Plowshares assuming they don't pay the tax, then they might want to move the Lightning Greaves over to Esper Sentinel to enchant Denetha, and Denetha swings in towards us. Looks like Bumbleflower has gained a reputation since last time we played it. Either that or it's just a random attack. Tharda Adele, Acquisitor. So trying to steal Soul Rings is typically the play with that. We do have an island, so does the Aslask. Then we see the second commander, Aslask, the Swelling Scourge, into play. And draw ourselves the Planar Genesis that we saw previously. So sticking with the plan, throw out Beseiju. Draw our opponent a card by casting the Smothering Tithe. And yeah, there we go, as we thought, the Lightning Greaves trying to be put onto the Esper Sentinel, which I assume is to take Shroud off it. So I'm going to go for Swords onto the Esper Sentinel. They've drawn enough cards from that as it is, but they're going to draw another one here. Might completely screw up their turn with this, but they get another card draw on the way out at least, which gets us another treasure token. So this now potentially means that they have to play another creature in order to get the Shroud off their commander, which 1, they might not have in hand, and 2, means that it swallows up this turn for them, slows them down a little bit. So instead going for the creature, which they might have gone for anyway. That does have flash, so yeah, they didn't have to do that, but protection from everything onto their commander. And then it's Shroud onto the Vexillus, because why not if this has pro everything. Denetha swinging into the right this time. So not being too reactionary to us, which I always appreciate. Now we're going to be able to get the Archivist of Ogma down here, potentially. Do we either want that or the Gnome? We'll have to decide on what our opponent does, assuming that he searches at all. This is whenever an opponent searches their library, not ours. So yeah, swings in with the Island Walker at us, and does take from us the Soul Ring, as you would expect. And then cracking Windswept Heath means we can go for the Deep Gnome Terramancer. Now we'll go for the Archivist of Ogma. We're running out of cards in hand, and hopefully we'll have the mana with a Smothering Tithe. So when the fetch resolves, we get to gain a life and draw a card. And that draws us into an island, followed by Emoti. So there's a Cascade. And they're going to get Super Cascade if they get their Maelstrom Wanderer into play soon. Gets them into a rampant growth, as it so often does with the Maelstrom Wanderer. So they get to search again and draw us another card with the Ogma. Would have had 2 additional lands in play here, but that's hindsight for you. Do we rather have the card draw or the extra lands? I don't know. All depends on if Smothering Tithe survives. Don't think our opponent's going to draw multiple cards here, but if he does, we'll be able to get the Deep Gnome Terramancer down anyway. Alright, well, apparently so. There's a Null Drifter, so it does get to draw an additional 2 cards, meaning there's a couple of treasure coming into play here, so we're losing out on our spells is the problem, because we want to double spell into Miss Bumbleflower, so point being, we could go Harrow into the Deep Gnome Terramancer, but I think it might be worth leaving the Harrow for now, and instead just doing the Deep Gnome. Our opponent might play another fetch yet. An experience counter for Aslask for the first time, because that was played with Evoke. And no fetch land. Decides not to swing in with the commander. Let's play ourselves this Deep Gnome Terramancer, or do we want to do it on our opponent's turns? Because it's the whole double spell thing that we keep talking about. Yeah, maybe it would be wiser to go for the Nature's Law on our turn and hold up the treasure in order to do that. Discards Kozilek to hand size, so shuffles the graveyard into the library. And there is Alandra. Well, we've got instants and sorceries in hand, but I think we need to get Miss Bumbleflower down here, so play the land. And we'll play the Nature's Law here. This will be the second spell, but won't count with the 2 card draw on this. So we could trigger our commander twice here, but it's during our turn. Does it matter as much? Yeah, let's just go for the Nature's Law. So plus counter, we can have the... Yeah, we'll have the Eldrazi player draw a card. He's going slower. Plus counter on Archivist of Ogma. And that means that we trigger Smothering Tithe. Obviously goes well while we're handing card draw around. We'll grab ourselves an untapped land in the Savannah. Not doing too well on white lands at the moment. And then could play ourselves the Planar Genesis in order to trigger our commander for the second time. Yeah, let's go for that here. Or actually, I'll keep hold of the instants. Let's go for the Gnome. Simply doing this to draw 2 cards because we'll have triggered the Bumbleflower twice this turn. So we'll do a little peace offering towards Denetha. Plus counter on our commander, card draw over there. And that means we draw 2, draw into the Fierce Guardianship to protect our board, and Ozolith as well for double plus counters. So I think we can pass through the turn here quite comfortably. Be good to get down the Alandra next turn so that we can start getting a bunch of Drakes into play off the instants. We've even got special Bloomburrow treasure apparently, look like Tanuki. Oh no, there'll be raccoons in this set, won't they? Idyllic Shooter searches for our opponent, went after a Blind Obedience which can switch off our treasure, and they search their library, so that is a card draw. Never had Archivist of Ogma do this much for us. A Wilderness Reclamation can untap our lands, which can be very handy. We'll allow the Blind Obedience into play because it can hurt the Maelstrom Wanderer player as well, especially if he's going after the artifacts. So do we go for a double spell now whilst our opponents are still tapped out? Does mean that we're playing our instants and sorceries without Alandra in play, but I don't think they're worth keeping hold of just to try and trigger that. Denetha swings in at Maelstrom Wanderer now. So let's go for the Harrow. The treasure are obviously going to come into play tapped from now on. You just get rid of Boseiju, don't think it really matters. If we somehow shuffle our graveyard into our library, then the Boseiju would be more helpful to draw into. Miss Bumbleflower putting a plus counter on itself. Don't imagine the commander damage is ever going to be of use, but it makes it a better blocker. And it does have vigilance, so we can attack him with it quite comfortably. Smothering Tithe triggers again for a tapped treasure token now, which makes all the difference. So if we do get into removal for the Blind Obedience, then we might have to go for that at some point. Go for a forest and an island here, because they come into play untapped. And that means that we can play the Planar Genesis quite comfortably with the lands. Try and hold on to as many treasure as we can. So triggers for a second time on Miss Bumbleflower. And we'll just put a plus counter on the Gnome. Having the Eldrazi player draw here, we will draw 2. Gets us into Nykthos, Shrine to Nyx. And the Free Strider Lookout, which I think is going to be very good with getting additional lands for us. Hopefully be able to start seeing that next turn. Alright, there's a Mesa Enchantress. Or we can go for Snap, a Pongify, a Gaia Sage. I don't mind having the Snap in hand, to be honest. So let's say no to that. The Snap is quite easy to do a double spell with. And hopefully the Gnome will continue to get lands for us. May well see Maelstrom Wanderer here from our opponent. Yep, there it is. So it is triple Cascade thanks to the Emoti being in play. And that's a Cursed Mirror, can copy something. Do they have to target? No, it's any creature on the battlefield, so they could give Maelstrom Wanderer protection from everything by copying the Vixalis, I mean. Instead decide to copy the Denether. It is an artifact, so it comes into play tapped. Not sure if that's relevant to my opponent's plan. A Hellkite Tyrant. And there's nothing we can do about that. And it is a big spell, so again, thanks to Emoti, it cascades into a Brainstorm, so they can stack the top card of their library for the final cascade. Does draw us more Smothering Tithe treasure, but I dare say we're about to lose those to the Hellkite Tyrant anyway. So they know what they're cascading into for the final time. There's a Terror of the Peaks. And I forgot these come into play tap, don't they? So Hellkite Tyrant not going to steal our treasure just yet. Maelstrom Wanderer is going to deal 7 damage to something though. And thanks to not putting a plus counter on the Bumbleflower before now, it could get blown up here. Probably will. No, going on to the Archivist of Ogma instead. Well, I'm fine with that. Drawn plenty of cards off it already. Could always steal a Mana Crypt with the Tharda. And I think we've got one in this deck. They've obviously seen it, so deciding to swing in at us. They've searched through our library already. So maybe it is worth getting down Alandra after all, simply so we can... Oh, this has Trample. I was going to say get the Drakes in play in order to chump block that, but that won't work for us unless we can get 3 Drakes into play, which maybe we can. Anyway, the Mana Crypt has been stolen. We don't have a Homeward Path or anything like that in this deck, I don't think. Cyclonic Rift could get our stuff back though. Tomb of the Spirit Dragon here, just a means of life gain. And then we see Anointed Procession, the Eldrazi player just slowly setting himself up over there. Not seen any ramp there whatsoever, I don't think. So we untap with 8 treasure. And there is a Spara's Headquarters. I don't think we'll make too much use of Nykthos at the moment, so might get that down, although we could always cycle this as well. But we're definitely doing the double spell thing. So let's see about the Free Strider Lookout, seeing as how this is a new card that I haven't been able to play yet. Eldrazi player can draw a card again. He discarded a Vile Redeemer previously. Plus counter on the Bumbleflower so that we can hopefully better block the Maelstrom Wanderer. In fact, I'll just start piling on plus counters onto Bumbleflower so that we can fly over and make some attacks over there. Might not be much damage, but might as well while we can. And we do consistently commit crimes with the Free Strider Lookout and the Bumbleflower, of course, which is why it's in here. Let's play the Wilderness Reclamation as our second spell for the turn. And we'll point more card draw at the slowest player at the table in the Eldrazi deck. Another plus counter on Bumbleflower. And that triggers the Free Strider Lookout, so we'll see if we grab a land here. I think it's the, top 5 cards. And there is a Misty Rainforest. Draw 2 with our commander as well. Alright, and clearing a couple of lands off the top. So I think we are cycling the Spara's Headquarters. Let's go Nykthos in that case. I think I will get down the Alandra. Not going to save it so that we can easier double spell next turn. Our devotion isn't all that great at the moment, so not going to bother with that either. In fact, we're best going for the Ozolith first. Yeah, I suppose we might as well get down the Ozolith here. Could cycle that as well. Another card draw for the Eldrazi player, another counter on Bumbleflower. So, would have had an additional 2 or 3 counters by now if we'd gone for the Ozolith first. That does come into play tapped, so we can't put a couple of plus counters on anything at least. Another card draw over here, and 2 counters on Bumbleflower this time. Finally getting the Alandra into play. Noteworthy discarded here, must have been to hand size a Basri Ket as well. So yeah, at this point I think we pass through, try and double spell on this player's turn. Might have to just counter something simply for the sake of getting the card draw with our commander. Although keeping hold of the spot removal onto this thing, we can either bounce this or we can use it to put a plus counter and flying on this so that we can block so that he doesn't get a bunch of treasure tokens off us. And he'll steal away our Ozolith now as well. Yeah, we'll have to see what the mono white player does. If he forces us to use the Fierce Guardianship, then I suppose then we'll go for the Snap as well, just so that we can draw a couple and pray that we get into something. So landing 8 commander damage on the Teamer player. And thanks to the Wilderness Reclamation, we will untap all our lands at the end of the turn. Only at the end of our turn though. Do have devotion to green of 4 now at least, so we can gain a bit more mana, just 1 more mana with the Nykthos. I don't think that's going to be relevant, but it's probably worth playing around. Denether going straight through to combat, so might have an instant, although, yeah, protection from everything. I'm now just thinking he can't equip or give auras to this, which is counterintuitive with Denether. Anyway, swing straight through us. I'll take this turn to go for the Spara's headquarters being cycled, I think, if we're not forced to use any other interaction. Obviously cycling is an ability, it doesn't count as a spell being cast. And there we see a Winds of Wrath, so our opponent is going to force us to counter here. Yeah, I think so. We'll see if he wants to pay the extort cost first. He might be tempted and then take himself off of swords. No, deciding to hold it up, which could be telling. Might have a tutor, but could also be swords or path. We'll force him to use it. So that's the first spell. And Free Strider Lookout is committing a crime. So point at our opponent, I'll just give the plus counter to the Reacher, it doesn't matter now after combat. So this player decides to scoop after the Wrath gets countered. Yeah, I think he set up a bit of a non-bow for himself there, giving his commander protection from everything. That 40k card is really good, but it's very, very niche. 4 mana protect your commander from everything. And is this player going to counter the Fierce Guardianship now? That would be funny after this player just scooped. Decided to untap his mana. So Free Strider Lookout, we will see if we get into a land. We do. We'll make it the Temple Garden. It taps for more colours. Comes in tapped anyway. So now let's make some green mana, because we can untap the Nykthos with the snap anyway. Cycle the Spara's headquarters, because I'd rather hold on to the snap during combat if we can. If there's something else we can do at instant speed here, then I will. Alright, a Lotus Petal is easy for next turn. So tap that down, let's go for the snap onto this thing. If they want to recast it, that's fine. Simply doing this to draw more cards, because like I said, I'd rather do it on this player's turn. So the Eldrazi player continues to be a draw creature for us. Couple of counters onto the... put some on the Reacher. Our commander's got 12 toughness at the moment. So they can easily recast and swing in with this, but it swallows up a lot of their mana, or most of their mana. Right, Swords to Plowshares goes onto the Bumbleflower, so there was a Swords to Plowshares to worry about, but it was from the wrong player. We do have a Pongify that we can mess around with now at least, but won't be as relevant with the Bumbleflower being out of play. So yeah, return our commander to the command zone. Our treasurer coming in untapped now thanks to the early scooper. Untap a Jewel and the Nykthos. And I don't think we have another Surveil land available to us with the Misty Rainforest. I think I only put 2 in this deck. Can have a look for it afterwards. Fiery Emancipation with Cascade. So there's about to be a lot of damage dealt. Not replaying that big dragon into Terror of the Peaks at least. Might have to blow this up, especially with Fiery Emancipation available. Luckily the Drake came into play untapped as well. Oh, and the Kenrith's Transformation, and that's going on to the Reacher. I mean, we've already got quite a few lands from that, so that's not the end of the world. Our opponent does draw off it though. Yeah, I didn't think of this for a Maelstrom Wanderer list. I mean, there's a million things that go in Maelstrom Wanderer. Played it a hell of a lot on the channel, so I don't really look to upgrade it and play it anymore. But triple damage means that you can one-shot players with Maelstrom Wanderer, because it has that 7 power. So I'll have to see if they get any means of evasion here before we pull the trigger on our Pongify. Didn't manage to cascade into a creature at least, so Terror of the... Oh, wow. Alright, Nadu, Winged Wisdom. That means that they're going to get to, that is 9 damage from the Terror of the Peaks. I think I'm just going to have to pull the trigger now and hope that we don't see Rancor or something like that onto this. We do have to pay 3 life to the ward. It's effectively ward, isn't it? Yeah. And then a blue mana. So we definitely want Cyclonic Rift against the Maelstrom Wanderer player now, because Nadu, haven't actually seen it played in the 99 of any deck, but yeah, we all know how good this is. Wooded Foothills going to trigger the Deep Gnome again. So have had some decent luck with the Terramancer and the Archivist of Ogma. In previous games I've played them, it hasn't gone particularly well with those creatures, but at the very least you do get value from your commander by playing those. You could double spell both of them. Don't have any more planes to grab with it though. bear that in mind for the Arid Mesa here. We'll be able to tap the fetches for mana with Yavimaya in play though. A Shardless Agent will Cascade, and it's a 2-2. Cascades into an Arcane Signet. So now, how much of this is going to go wide on us? We definitely have to block the Maelstrom Wanderer. I dare say most of it's going to swing in at us. So, yeah, it's all coming in at us. Can't block the Tharda. We do have to chump block the Maelstrom Wanderer. And then if we just chump block Nadu as well, don't have 2 Drakes for that unfortunately. But that is 9 damage from this. 6 damage from this is 15. And then a further 6 damage is 21, thanks to the Fiery Emancipation. So we've probably got one more turn in us in which we have to try and draw some really good cards. Tharda triggers again. They don't have any mana to steal anything from us, but they can exile it from our library at least. Taking a Jeweled Lotus, so they might as well play that, I suppose, just in case they need to recast their commander again. Don't normally run Jeweled Lotus, but obviously it's a 0 mana artifact that we can play into our commander easily enough, so even if it's a dead card because Bumbleflower's in play, we can still double spell with it easily enough, same with the Lotus Petal. There's an Urza's Tower here as well, so has nearly assembled the 3 cards he needs for that. Like I said before, I don't think there's a Surveil land here under the Misty Rainforest, but I also don't think the 1 point of life is going to matter, so I'll just see if we can grab something with it. There is a Drowner of Hope. When it enters, create 2 Eldrazi. And they can also tap a target creature with that, so I doubt the Maelstrom Wanderer is going to be swinging anywhere other than us. But he will be able to buy himself some time against that if he needs to. Does mean that he loses out on blockers doing that though. Oh, and of course he gets twice as many Eldrazi thanks to the Anointed Procession. Sacks them straight away, just sacking them for mana here. Takes them into Lightning Greaves to protect his commander, or protect his Drowner of Hope even. Yeah, we didn't have another Surveil land, so it can just be the Breeding Pool intact. Slightly less chance we're going to draw into a land at least if we pull one out of the library. Well, we can double spell into the Bumbleflower at least, because we've got plenty of mana. Kozilek discarded again to hand size with an Ashnod's Altar. There's a Smothering Abomination as well. We saw the Swords to Plowshares onto our commander, of course. And now we see the Offer You Can't Refuse, just 1 card away from that. We know we've got forests available to us, so we can play the Verdant Catacombs over the Arid Mesa. Play the Miss Bumbleflower first of all. And I think we're best starting to crack more treasure, just in case all the artifacts are wrapped up in a board wipe. We'll still be able to do stuff with the lands. Although we do untap the lands during our turn, don't we? Forgetting about the enchantment. So we'll play the Lotus Petal and start to pile on as many plus counters onto Miss Bumbleflower as possible. I think our opponent's going wide on us anyway, but we want to definitely be able to block the commander. Eldrazi player can draw 2 plus counters on Bumbleflower. Pointed it out before as well, but with Lotus Petal and the Jeweled Lotus we can do the double spell thing, but we've got a combo in here as well with the Evolution Witness that we saw in the previous game, which we might be able to draw into here. Glen Elendra Archmage is the second spell into Miss Bumbleflower. So this will draw us 2 cards and we'll continue to pile plus counters onto the commander. Triggers the Elandra. We get a Consecrated Sphinx. That does not have reach, that's Vigilance, but getting another flyer into play I don't mind, along with Elandra as well. We could put plus counters onto the Flying Drake so that Nadu can't as easily get past us. And obviously we've got a flyer in the Glen Elendra as well, which is a good blocker as well because it comes in with Persist once it goes down. So we're going to have a decent amount of devotion to blue. Let's get down Consecrated Sphinx as well. Couple of plus counters onto the Drake token. Play a land for the turn before I forget. And then we can go for Ozolith onto something. Can only do that as a sorcery, so we might as well do it here. They've got triple damage is the problem, so this would deal 9 damage. But we could have the Consecrated Sphinx survive that, so yeah, let's go for that. So Ozolith has 2 plus counters, go onto the Sphinx. We just need to pray that we draw into something good off the top with that. Might as well play the Heronblade Elite, it's another blocker. And again, plus counters onto the Consecrated Sphinx to get it north of that 9 damage that we can have it survive the Nadu too. So draw 2 cards and cleared her land off the top. There's a Wall of Roots, we might as well go again. Elandra is This and drakes you control get +X until the end of the turn, where X is the number of cards in your hand. We can't draw any other cards here. I don't think that second ability is going to be of much relevance. If the game goes on much longer and we somehow manage to survive, then it could do some good to us, but I think all we really want to do is survive against Maelstrom Wanderer at this point. So 2 lands held up can be the Wall of Roots, and again, distribute plus counters. The Eldrazi player draws a card to the commander. We draw 2 to the Consecrated Sphinx. Throw the plus counters onto Heronblade Elite. It's a better blocker that way, but it also taps for more mana. Again, if we get another turn. A Utopia Sprawl allows us to play another spell here. And it's not an instant, so we might as well play it now. Seaborn Muse, obviously incredible as well. But let's go Utopia Sprawl first. Can just go on any land, it doesn't really matter. Because we can still be hunting for this Evolution Witness combo here. Plus counters onto the wall this time. Alright, well, there's a Worldly Tutor. So, can we do it here? I think we might be able to. I mean, I'm not actually going to go through the combo, but just for the sake of being honest, I will cast it here. Because what we do with the combo and the Evolution Witness is have our opponents draw their entire decks, and we can always say no to the Consecrated Sphinx so that we don't draw ours. But it's way too much clicking, and we're already playing Solitaire here, so we do manage to get the win, but our opponents aren't going to see it. Draw into View from Above, which we can play infinitely, as long as we've got the mana that is, and a peek as well. Search our library, put the card on top. So we go after the Evolution Witness, and then we'll play ourselves a Kami of Whispered Hopes that will make even more plus counters and draw us into the creature. So there, with the Consecrated Sphinx, draw into the combo piece, and now we play Evolution Witness. Make a treasure, draw to Sphinx again, and now we've got a rewind, finally getting into some means of protection, but I don't think we need it here at this point. So what we do here is crack the Lotus Petal. We'll go for blue mana, and we might as well just play View from Above. So target creature gains flying, you get it back to your hand if you control a white permanent, which we always will if we control our commander. So just point it at anything. And then with Miss Bumbleflower, the card draw goes on the Eldrazi player, the plus counters go on the Evolution Witness, which will trigger the Evolution Witness, and we will point it at the Lotus Petal. And basically what happens is we can recast that now and sack it, bring it back with Evolution Witness, and just do that over and over again. And every time we do that, we can say no to Consecrated Sphinx and have our opponents draw their entire deck. And they're tapped out here, so I don't imagine there's anything they can do about it. Not going to do it because it would take a million clicks, and like I said before, our opponents have already been incredibly patient with us. So we'll just consider that a win and carry on playing as if it were not won with a combo. So with 43 cards left in the deck, I think we are safe to just leave it there. Noteworthy, I suppose we could have piled all the plus counters onto Alandra here and then just swung in and tried to deal with this player. Either of our non-summoning sick creatures was just trying to survive against the swing back. Didn't realise it would be such a solitaire turn. So I'll just swing in with both of them, should be able to make... maybe we won't have enough blockers if we swing in with both of these, but we've just won the game anyway. And then we untap all our lands with the Wilderness Reclamation at the end of the turn. Our opponent draws during the draw steps, so it's more Smothering Tithe and Consecrated Sphinx shenanigans. Which means without playing anything, we're going to be able to get another Drake token. Drawing 2 White Mane Lion, which we can just play over and over again for as long as we've got mana. It's good if we're desperate for another blocker here as well. Hellkite Tyrant gets the Cascade. Let's see what the Cascade into first. I might go for the counter on that. Alright, Entish Restoration they can have. Yeah, I think I will counter it simply because it has Trample. It's slightly more difficult to block with that. So that means Bumbleflower triggers again. Just put the plus counters on the Drake. Rewind will untap the 4 lands that we used to play it. There's an Urza's Bauble for that previous combo that we just saw as well. Noteworthy, we have Alchemist's Refuge, which is one of the only means of us playing Flash in the deck. It might be worth putting a Leyline of Anticipation in here, I think, because we do end up with a lot of cards in hand if things go well for us. And it makes it a lot easier to play at instant speed then. An Old Gnawbone. Well, that's a pretty good one. Does not have Trample, thankfully, but it's whenever a creature deals damage, they get the treasure tokens untapped. And they get to tap down the Consecrated Sphinx, still trying to get rid of us with the Eldrazi. Haven't seen the Cascade yet. They do get another experience counter for doing that. We do have the view from above. We can give anything we want flying here, really. Tapping down another creature, pointing that at the 4/4 Drake. So again, what we could do here is just go for view from above a bunch of times. Every time we cast it, we give something flying and we buff the army even further. We're really just swallowing up all of our opponent's time. There's honestly been a little bit of salt in the chat because our opponents are getting impatient with us, which, I get it, but what we are doing is way more complicated than what our opponents are doing. So, I mean, it takes as long as it takes at the end of the day, but I don't want to swallow up any more of our opponent's time, especially as we've just shown the viewers a combo win here. So there's a Confounding Conundrum. Not particularly bothered about that, although I would have been earlier on in the game. So we draw another card, and now the Commander and the Drakes get the buffs again. There's an Opt for us. So we'll see what happens with attacks. I just have to assume that all of this is coming in towards us. I mean, we can put flying on everything and our opponent knows it, so yeah, just swinging with everything. That's 3, 6 and 7 creatures. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and 7 creatures to block with. Could have made another one with the white main lion. Let's peek at our opponent's hand to make a flyer. And also we get to look at his hand as well, just out of interest. So we'll turn the Wall of Roots into a flyer, because Miss Bumbleflower does plus tokens and flying, for anyone who forgot that. Alright, and we just so happen to draw into a Beast Within there, so are there any Tramplers? Could just go after the Nardu, couldn't we? Because that's got the obnoxious ability on it. Plus it's a flyer that we don't have to block. Didn't actually get a chance to look at my opponent's hand yet in the reveal zone. Turn the Evolution Witness into a flyer. And we'll get to return a permanent from graveyard to hand with that as well. Trying to play this as quick as I can because, like I said, a bit of salt in the chat. I was being called rude for keeping people waiting, but I mean, I'm clicking all this as fast as I can, but you know, Magic Online's pretty sluggish. So I do apologise to my opponents, and I appreciate them playing it out, even though it's obnoxious. Grab back the Boseiju just because. First thing I saw. And then Nardu resolves. We'll see what he can reveal. Reveals an Omen Path Journey to us with that. So we successfully blow up the Simic Commander. And then let's just go through to blocks finally. So everything apart from the 6 damage from Thada being blocked. And if I've made any kind of mistake here and they get through damage onto us, then so be it. So some creatures go down thanks to all the triple damage. Glen Elendra comes back in with Persist, so of course we can use that as a counter creature, as a negate on a creature. And ironically, the minus counter is negated by the plus counter that we can eventually put on there with Bumbleflower. Of course, damage was dealt to us with the Thada, so he still gets some treasure tokens with 5 mana available. And he's got the Jeweled Lotus, so could replay his commander, I think, or maybe he's just shy. No, decides to pass the turn. In all this, we've only got 1 counter magic to back us up with, so yeah, he might be able to get a board wipe through us if he's got some kind of counter magic. His colours aren't the best at the moment though. The Maelstrom Wanderer deciding to scoop because we just get him on the swing back next turn. He's assuming that the board's not going to get wiped here correctly. Path to Exile onto the Glen Elendra Archmage. So yeah, if our opponent wants to keep playing it out, we'll do it. Can go Opt, and that will get us to scry and draw a card. I mean, I'm only really playing... I feel really bad now because of the salt in the chat. But I'm only playing this out to show these intricacies that we wouldn't necessarily get a chance to see if I don't play this deck again. Oh, so we've got the Free Strider Lookout back online, so we might get another land. But playing the Opt triggers the Bumbleflower, so we get the plus counter thing pointed at the Glen Elendra Archmage, and then we can use the same creature to counter the Path to Exile that's pointed at it. And that's the second card we draw of this turn, so get to make another Drake. Sacrifice Glen Elendra to counter the Path to Exile. And of course, because it didn't have a minus counter on it already, it now comes in with Persist again, and we see the power. Once we can set up Glen Elendra Archmage with our commander, it's pretty obnoxious towards our opponents, but this does mean that we get to keep hold of the Offer You Can't Refuse as well. Don't think there's actually that many counters in the deck, as obnoxious as this is. And yeah, deciding to scoop. Let's see what we were drawing into there. Not that it really matters. A burgeoning. We are far away from that being relevant, but I think I said before earlier in the game that the small cards are still of some relevance to double spell with on your turn. So even if you're not going to do anything with them, you can at least get the triggers with Miss Bumbleflower. So I was debating with myself whether or not to show you the chat here. Sometimes it's fun to poke fun at your opponents when they're being really moody with you, but yeah, I kind of get it here. It's not exactly fun to sit and watch your opponent play for half an hour while you're not doing anything, but we have to do it for the videos, and if you want to see gameplay with Miss Bumbleflower, then this is how it's going to pan out once in a while, unfortunately. So apologies to my opponents for the solitaire game, but hopefully you, the viewers, all enjoyed it. Massive thank you to the patrons for their support of the channel. You can do so yourself via the link in the description below, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one. I'm tribalkai. Thank you for watching. And there's an impulse that will help us with the double spell things, so it can be a Savannah into an Exploration on turn 1. Yeah, let's do that so that we don't make our opponents worry too much. Fixes our colours a bit better as well. Anyway, we see a Mana Crypt here, so we've got a spiky Winota player by the looks of it. Plays out a Goldmere, ready to swing in with the commander next turn, I dare say. So there's a Pongify. Do we hold that up for the Winota? Probably going to be an intelligent idea, isn't it? Does mean we're taking a turn off though. Let's get down. Yeah, we'll get out a Sol Ring and just play the Breeding Pool in tapped then. Gonna feel bad if my opponent doesn't go for the Winota now, but I can at least play Trouble in Pairs and hold up the Pongify next turn. That was all due to the fact that we didn't play Sol Ring on turn 1. Could have gone for the Trouble in Pairs and held up the Pongify still. But obviously weren't to know that we were going to draw into that. And not going to play Winota. Feels bad. We could do with a Talisman of Conviction. Let's try Trouble in Pairs. I think they might be holding up a Swords for us to put onto the Miss Bumbleflower. See if they can protect their commander. They can with an Apostle's Blessing. So going to be able to swing in with their commander. Draws us a card with Trouble in Pairs. Still no red mana for them outside of the Talisman, so it could be worth blowing that thing up. And of course the Krenko comes in towards us. The Mir goes in to the right, so 2 triggers with Winota by turn 3. Plus counter on the Krenko will make some goblins. Gets him into a human in Ranger Captain of Eos, which tutors out an Ocelot Pride. And then into a Mirror Entity. So we get the Mirror Entity and the Ranger of Eos as well. Plays a Sylvan Library, so that does count as card draw, which goes very nicely with our Trouble in Pairs. Is the second spell being cast, gets us into a Shrieking Drake and an Evolution Witness, because they drew a card with the Argothian Enchantress, so drawing 2 cards off our enchantment. Didn't see a land though. And then sacrificing the Ranger Captain of Eos. Our opponent really has it in for us, can't cast non-creature spells this turn, so we're just going for our commander anyway. Suppose he's scared of us wiping the board. A Dusk Legion Duelist is nice. Have to imagine that the entire Winota army is going to come in towards us. So do we just go for this and adapt it straight away? And then we can at least make a land this turn. Not all that incredible a play. Yeah, I think we just need to set up here, to be honest. So throw down the Evolution Witness, and probably has to be Fairy Mastermind as well, I think. So we'll just hold that up during our opponent's turn. Alright, our opponent gets into a mountain, has 3 cards in hand, and is about to swing in with a bunch of stuff. We'll just have to hope that he spreads the damage here, but really has it in for us, so yeah, everything in towards us it looks like. And he can just tap out into the Mirror Entity. So might draw into something relevant with Trouble in Pairs, I doubt it though. We get into an island, could have done with that previously. Is tapping out into something. Yeah, it's the Mirror Entity, 5 mana into that I think. So it's a bunch of 7/7s at the moment. The Krenko is an 8/8 but is about to get a plus counter on it. And Winota triggers 4 times to get a bunch of stuff into play. Reveals nothing. Throws out a Grand Abolisher, so we can't even throw a chump blocker in the way now. See a Serra Ascendant and a Silverwing Squadron. So that was fun, losing on turn 4 to Winota. Not even going to bother making blocks. There's an 18-18 in the air here. Oh, that's actually going in over there anyway, but just going to assume, yeah, we go down by 15. Pretty safe to assume we go down there. So this player goes down to the flyer alone. There's 9 untapped goblins in the way. Rocky Tar Pit being cracked. And then a Farseek isn't going to do it. While Winota's winning games, our opponent is still setting up his colours. And then scoops. And then the Gruul player scoops. So getting pub stomped by a Winota deck on turn 4. Awesome.